On August 15, 1977, a radio telescope called Big Ear, operated by Ohio State University, was doing what it did every day, scanning the sky for radio signals of unnatural origin. It was routine work. Monotonous. Most days it produced nothing but background noise. But on that day, at 10:16 p.m. local time, the equipment detected something. A radio signal at a frequency of 1420 MHz, the frequency of hydrogen, the frequency that scientists from the SETI project had identified decades earlier as the most likely for interstellar communication, because it is universally recognizable by any civilization with knowledge of basic chemistry. The signal lasted exactly 72 seconds. It was so intense, so precise, so different from anything the equipment had recorded before, that astronomer Jerry Ehman, reviewing the data printed on paper 3 days later, took a red pen and wrote a single word in the margin of the sheet. A word that became the name by which this event is known to this day throughout the global scientific community. He wrote, "Wow." But that's not the disturbing part. The disturbing part is what happened in the following 47 years. Because since that August night in 1977, the world's most advanced radio telescopes, with technology exponentially superior to the Big Ear, pointed to the same coordinates, at the same frequencies, on hundreds of different occasions. And the signal never appeared again. Never. Not once. Not an echo. Not a fragment. Nothing. A signal that was strong enough to be detected with 1977 technology simply stopped. And the official explanation, the explanation that most scientific articles on the subject present, is that it may have been a comet. A comet reflecting solar signals in a way that artificially produced that frequency pattern. This hypothesis was published. It received attention. And it was challenged by virtually every expert who analyzed it in detail. But it was the explanation that stuck, because it was the only one that fit within the available models. And the question that no one is answering satisfactorily is this: if it was a comet, why has it never produced this pattern again? Why haven't any of the thousands of comets cataloged since then produced anything remotely similar? And why did the signal have characteristics that the authors of the comet hypothesis themselves described as difficult to fully explain within the model they proposed? So in the next few minutes, I'm not going to sell you an answer. I'm going to show you the path, the data, the debates, the hypotheses that the scientific community is taking seriously in 2024. And in the end, you will understand why the WOW signal is not just the most famous mystery in radio astronomy. It is the clearest mirror humanity has ever had of the most fundamental question we can ask: are we alone? There is a concept, documented, debated, central to the field of astrobiology, called a narrowband signal anomaly. A narrowband radio signal, like the WOW signal, is technically significant because natural signals tend to be broadband. Stellar noise, pulsar emissions, cosmic interference outtiles, all produce signals, distributed across multiple frequencies, simultaneously. A signal concentrated at a specific frequency, especially the hydrogen frequency, is exactly the type of signature that theoretical models of interstellar communication predict an artificial technology would produce. This is not speculation. It is wave physics. It is the same reasoning that led Frank Drake to formulate the Drake equation in 1961, and that has guided the SETI project for over 6 decades. The WOW signal had all the theoretical characteristics of a narrowband artificial signal. That is a fact. What is not a fact, what remains a hypothesis, is the origin of this signal. Now comes the detail that shouldn't exist. The Big Ear telescope had 2 separate radio receivers, pointing to slightly different regions of the sky with a 72-second interval between them. When a real object in space passes through the telescope's field of view, it appears first on one receiver, then on the other, producing a bell-shaped signal pattern on both. An increasing intensity, a peak, a decreasing intensity twice, with a predictable interval. The WOW signal appeared on only one of the receivers. Only one. There was no second peak. There was no confirmation on the second receiver. This is a fact that the comet hypothesis cannot satisfactorily explain, because a comet passing through the telescope's field of view should have produced the pattern on both receivers. The fact that it appeared on only one is an anomaly within an anomaly. Wait a minute. The most famous signal in the history of radio astronomy has within it a technical detail that the official explanation cannot fully accommodate, and this detail is in the original data. Available to anyone who reads Jerry Ehman's technical paper published in Cosmic Search magazine in 1979. I went looking for this detail, and what I found next completely changed my understanding of what is being debated. In 2016, a group of astronomers from St. Paul Laval University in Canada published a study in the journal Publications of the Astronomical Society of the Pacific analyzing a set of 234 stars that exhibited unusual spectral patterns in data from ESA's Hipparcos telescope. The study identified that these stars showed a periodic pattern of spectral variation that the authors described as consistent with what would be expected from an extraterrestrial civilization using stellar-scale laser communication technology. The study was published in a reputable peer-reviewed journal. It received scientific coverage, and it was later challenged by other researchers who identified alternative instrumental explanations for the observed patterns. But what matters here is not the conclusion of the study, it's the method. It's the fact that in 2016, almost 40 years after the WOW signal, serious researchers were still publishing studies in respected journals using exactly the theoretical framework that would make the WOW signal what it appears to be. They didn't stop searching. They didn't reach a consensus. And they didn't rule out the possibility. I will precisely separate what is fact from what is hypothesis from what is speculation because you deserve this distinction. Facts: the WOW signal was detected on August 15, 1977 by Big Ear at a frequency of 1420 MHz with an intensity 30 times above the background noise. Jerry Eman identified and recorded the signal 3 days later, a verifiable and preserved document. The signal lasted 72 seconds and has never been detected again despite hundreds of attempts with superior equipment. The signal appeared on only one of the two receivers of the Big Ear, a technical anomaly not fully explained by the comet hypothesis. The 2016 Canadian study was published in the Publications of the Astronomical Society of the Pacific, a real and verifiable journal. Hypotheses with partial scientific support: that the WOW signal was produced by a natural astronomical source not yet categorized, that the single receiver behavior may have an unidentified instrumental explanation, speculation without a solid factual basis, that the signal was deliberately produced by extraterrestrial intelligence. There is no evidence to support this scientifically. Now think about the consequences of what you just heard. The Big Ear was demolished in 1997 to make way for a golf course. The radio telescope that captured the only anomalous signal in the history of radio astronomy no longer exists. The original data survived in printed form. In 2020, an initiative to digitize historical scientific archives managed to convert some of these records to digital format. But the equipment that could have made systematic follow-up observations, under the same conditions, with the same technical configuration, was destroyed. This is not a conspiracy. It is the kind of institutional loss that happens when funding bodies fail to recognize the historical and scientific value of research infrastructure. And it means that certain questions about the WOW signal, questions that could only be answered by reproducing the exact conditions of the original detection, can no longer be answered. Not because someone forbade them, because the instrument no longer exists. In 2020, China completed the construction of FAST 500-meter aperture spherical telescope, the world's largest radio telescope with sensitivity approximately 5 times greater than any previous telescope. Since 2021, FAST has been operational and has included WOW signal coordinates in its observation programs. Still nothing has been detected. I know what you might be thinking now: 47 years without repetition. Alternative explanations available, even if incomplete. Shouldn't that be enough to rule it out? And I understand that reasoning. But here's the problem with it. Science doesn't work by ruling out based on absence. It works by falsification based on evidence. To rule out the WOW signal as an artificial signal, you would need to demonstrate that the natural hypothesis completely explains all the observed data. The comet hypothesis doesn't do that. The single receiver anomaly persists without complete explanation. And honest science admits, we still don't know. We don't know means not ruled out. And not ruled out, in a field where the question at stake is whether we are alone in the universe, means that the investigation continues. But there is a question that no one is asking publicly with the seriousness it deserves. And this question completely changes the perspective of everything you have seen so far. The question is not, was the WOW signal extraterrestrial? That question may never be answered with certainty. The forbidden question is this: what if the WOW signal is not unique? What if the reason we don't detect more signals like it is not because they don't exist, but because we are not listening in the right way? The Big Ear covered a tiny fraction of the sky in a specific frequency window during a specific period of time. Space is 13.8 billion years old. It has hundreds of billions of galaxies. It has frequencies that we do not yet systematically monitor. And our ability to listen to the entire universe at all frequencies in real time does not yet exist. It's not that silence is the answer. It's that perhaps we don't even know how to listen to the question yet. In 2023, the Breakthrough Listen project, funded with $100 million by physicist and entrepreneur Yuri Milner, using some of the world's most advanced radio telescopes, published its 8-year progress report. The report analyzed over 1.5 million stars and found no signals that qualified as confirmed candidates of technological origin. But the report included an observation that almost no media outlet highlighted. The coverage carried out by Breakthrough Listen in 8 years represents less than 1/millionth of the search capacity needed to statistically significantly scan just the Milky Way. Less than 1/millionth. 8 years. $100 million. Less than 1/millionth of the search needed in just our galaxy. And we still wonder why we haven't found anything. And then I understood. The reason the wow signal is disturbing is not because it proves we are not alone. It's because it proves we don't know enough to be sure we are. So what do you do with that? First, the next time someone says that CTI found nothing and therefore there is nothing to find, you have the data to refute them. 1/millionth of the necessary search is not a search. It is a statistically insignificant sample being presented as evidence of absence. Second, the comet hypothesis for the wow signal isn't wrong. It's incomplete. Learning to distinguish between an incomplete explanation and a correct explanation is one of the most important skills you can develop as a consumer of scientific information. Third, Breakthrough Listen and Fast are the most powerful tools ever built for this search. Follow their reports. Not the headlines, the reports. The difference between what the papers say and what the headlines say is often abysmal. Fourth, the question of extraterrestrial life is not just philosophical or intellectual curiosity. It has implications for how we assess long-term risks to human civilization, for how we allocate resources in space exploration, and for how we understand our own uniqueness, or lack thereof, in the universe. The 72-second signal from 1977 still has no complete explanation. That's a fact. The most mundane hypothesis available doesn't cover all the observed data. That's also a fact. And the search that would be necessary to say with statistical confidence that there's nothing more to find is less than 1/millionth complete. This is a documented fact, supported by the most well-funded project in CT's history. So what is the wow signal? Honestly, we don't know. It could be a natural phenomenon not yet categorized. It could be instrumental interference from an unidentified source. It could be a statistical artifact of a single detection. It could be something we don't yet have a framework to classify. What it cannot be, scientifically speaking, is definitely ruled out. And this impossibility of ruling it out is in itself the most important thing the wow signal tells us. Not about the universe. About how much of what we call certainty is actually the limit of what we have been able to hear so far. The question that will stay with you is this. If in 1977 a piece of primitive technology detected something that our best instruments of 2024 still can't fully explain, what are we failing to detect now, at this very moment, because we haven't yet built the right equipment to listen? You said, now I w a 2RH redsure. The video cover and the high 15 prompt ts following the same structure and pattern as the sabazix. And the fear 20 on and off fee, the prompt down 0 subplain indication, which could on both saying in effect ein.